Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Greetings from Aberdeen, the University of Aberdeen in the United Kingdom. My name is Russell Williams, and I'm going to be your presenter this afternoon. It's 1 o'clock here in the United Kingdom. I've got some information to share with you about postgraduate study at the University of Aberdeen, especially about the business school. But I've also got one of our current students, Ava Harding, in the session with us today. And my plan with Ava is to move into conversational mode after maybe 30 minutes or something. And I'll try and, in conversation with Ava, try to get more of an insight feel for you as to what it's like to study on one of our postgraduate programs. During the presentation, you have the option to drop questions into the chat facility. Feel free to do that. My colleague Claire is sitting behind the application, and she will then share the questions to myself and Ava at the end of the session. So that's our kind of format for the day, a little bit of a broadcast message, some key points, then into conversation, and then into a question and answer session at the end. Okay, so let's kick off. We'll be talking about postgraduate study. I'm going to just move so that I can actually change the slides on my machine. Okay, so first of all, a little bit about Aberdeen. Aberdeen, we're in the northeast of the United Kingdom. It's an average size city. It's quite a historic city, Aberdeen. And in fact, Aberdeenshire, the county around the city, is a county with, I think, the most castles per square mile of the United Kingdom. So if you like a castle and you're interested in history, then Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire is the place for you. Illustrating that, on the bottom right-hand side, we've got a picture of Dunnottar Castle. This is quite a famous castle in Scottish English history, British history, and this is just outside a town called Stonehaven, and many students will take a trip to visit the castle. It's got quite, a gruesome medieval history of a siege and various people being burned in it in the way that they were in the past. Anyway, on to more cheery notes. The other picture that you can see, you actually see three other pictures related to the city. The first one on the left is something called Marshall College, and this is it's the city council building. It's made of granite, and a lot of the city is made of granite, and it gives the city a very particular look and feel. And what's interesting about Marshall College is it has the second largest stained glass window in Europe, the other one I think being in Barcelona. But you're also seeing pictures from Aberdeen of the beach. Aberdeen is beside the sea, and you can walk to the beach in about 20 minutes from the university, and many students take the opportunity to take time out and have a stroll by the beach and along the promenade at the front. Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire around it have some very, very beautiful countryside, as well as this sort of beachscape around it, and many of the students take the opportunity to visit the countryside around us. There's some other information on the slide just about getting to Aberdeen. I travel quite a lot, and the way that I connect into Aberdeen is I usually fly via Heathrow or Amsterdam or Frankfurt. So you've got one of a number of connections, flight connections direct to Aberdeen. Or of course, people fly to Edinburgh, the capital city of Scotland, or Manchester or Glasgow, and then they would perhaps catch the train through to Aberdeen. Aberdeen is actually a very international city, and I'll say a little bit more about this later. And the reason that it's so international, it's the oil and gas capital of Europe. So we historically have had many of the oil majors' European headquarters in Aberdeen, and this has meant a lot of international employees from around the globe working in oil and gas have come in and out of the city and live in the city as well. So it's a very, very international city. Beyond this sort of industry of the city, and we'll move into maybe some facts about the university. I'll move on a little bit. Some facts about the university. We have 120 different nationalities studying at the university. So literally, that's a more than 50% proportion of the countries on the planet, study and live in Aberdeen via the university. So this is part of the experience that we think is really important for you as a postgraduate student, that international exposure of working with people from across the planet. And it's not just the students that are international, it's the faculty as well. So I often use the example that the current head of the business school is a Norwegian professor. The previous head of the business school was a Chinese professor, and the professor prior to the Chinese professor who was the head of school was an American. And we've also had previous to that a British head of school. And that just gives you a flavour of the kind of different origins of the faculty. The university has a policy of employing experts in their field, and you'll experience that international dimension of the expertise when you come to study. Now, the facts on the slide, I've noted that this university, or rather the business school, is EQUIS accredited. This is an accreditation that comes from the European Foundation of Management Development, and something like less than around 1% of business schools on the planet have the accreditation, and that accreditation sets us up as a top tier business school in the globe. We've got some other rankings there that you might be interested in. The national rankings from The Guardian and the Times newspaper are given there. And we pretty much always feature in the top 20 of those national rankings. Now, the picture that you're looking at on the slide there is part of King's College. And King's College is the main campus of the university. It's one of two campuses. The other one is located another 20 minutes of walk away from the King's College campus, and that's located around the hospital, and that's where the medical school is. Aberdeen, as you probably know, was established in 1495, so we're very proud of that history. And we do have some, what people often describe as Harry Potter type buildings, and there's one we're looking at. That's the gateway into the quad, which is a grass square inside the oldest part of the university. But we're more than an old university. We have modern buildings, modern facilities. And the university's tagline used to be old traditions, new ideas. So, of course, we have great traditions, fantastic old facilities, very modern new facilities. But what's really important about a university, I guess, is knowledge, understanding, ideas, and how we share and work with students in this knowledge, information and ideas domain. And in that regards, we're a very future-thinking university, focusing on the challenges that we face here in Aberdeen, but also in the United Kingdom and across the globe. And that's reflected in some of the research that I'll talk about in just a minute. So old traditions, new ideas. Now, we have quite a wide suite of postgraduate programs, and they're listed there. Ava, who's with us today, is from the MSc Marketing program, but as you can see, we teach from finance, economics, international business management, human resource management, marketing through to sustainability, and an MBA program. So we're kind of what we would call a full service business school in that regard. And in each of those programs, as I indicated earlier, you're going to experience an international student body, and you'll experience an international faculty delivering the content of those programs. I'll just move on to the next slide now. Now we're going to see some of our little bit more modern facilities here. So we're looking at the Blomberg Finance Lab. This is a trading facility that allows students to experience very near-time financial data, and they'll use this in some of the courses that they might take to do with finance or portfolio management. We've got a strong entrepreneurial orientation in the university, and what we're looking at in the middle picture is some of the facilities that are available to the students that progress an idea into a business, and that's called AB Venture Zone. So that's something that you may choose to do or want to participate in, not maybe as an entrepreneur, but helping to support an entrepreneur in their endeavor, and you can gain some experience working with some of our own entrepreneurs. I'll give just a little example of that at the moment. I'm working with one of our student businesses that's put together an AI-backed landlord and letting agency application. And we have 3 students working with the students who've started that business. It's in the kind of minimum viable product stage, and those students are helping model their finances. They're helping do some market and industry data to prepare their pitch deck. And the marketing student is beginning to try and work on the look and feel of some of their promotional material through social media channels. And then on the bottom right, we've got one of our teaching rooms, and this illustrates something of how the teaching might happen that you experience in some of the classes. So now, when I was an undergraduate, we spent a lot of time listening to professors who stood at the front, and we tried to absorb as much information as they were broadcasting to us. When we get to postgraduate study, the dynamic in the classroom changes a little bit. So I'm a faculty member, and what we prefer to do at postgraduate study is, yes, drop pieces of drop theories and concepts with you, but the idea of just, understanding a theory and concept has limited value. The value comes from being able to apply that theoretical perspective, the concept, to a practical problem. So we focus a lot around problem-based learning, and a lot of that problem-based learning in the classroom will happen with teams and groups trying to solve problems together. So the seating in that room is structured so that the students can talk and work on something, come to a position, and then feed it back to the rest of the class. And that's part of the learning process. It's problem-based learning. It's also experiential learning. We use a lot of experiential learning in the classroom. My own course is on negotiation. So, of course, I do tell students a lot of parts and components of the theoretical body of knowledge of negotiation, which comes a lot from, in fact, from psychology and communication theory. But the value comes, I think, when we have role play exercises, and I task the students with trying to put those theoretical concepts and principles into practice, and then generating an outcome from the scenario and the role that they're playing, and then working out what happened and why. And we do a lot of reflection on, did those techniques actually work in a practical context? So that's the kind of dynamic of postgraduate study. A move away from broadcast learning to problem-based learning, experiential learning, and in the process, you, the student, are asked to become more active rather than perhaps passive that you might have been at your undergraduate studies. It's a more mature relationship between the faculty and the student body. Now, that teaching that I was talking about, whether it's in the finance lab or perhaps in the negotiation class, it's informed by research. We're a research-led university in the sense that we generate research insight. In fact, pretty much all of the faculty in the business school are mandated to engage in research and publish research, and or engage in consultancy practice as well. And then they're charged as well to make sure that that knowledge just doesn't remain inside some book or some journal. It's passed to students as up-to-date practical insight into the problems that we face as individuals and society. And on the slide, we've got a little bit of an insight into some of the very sort of nuanced areas that that research goes into. So the first one, global concerns about modern slavery. Actually, this is Professor Aziz, and his research is really about supply chains and how supply chains are looking at standards and protocols around good practice across the whole of the supply chain, from sourcing raw materials to the delivery of the products to the shops. So very, very kind of, it sounds very high level, but it's very practical in that context. There's another one in there looking, for example, at microplastics and pollution in the world's ocean. And that's coming out of a sustainability aspect that we look at inside the business school. So it's research-led teaching, it's cutting-edge teaching. We have a number of research centres that support those ideas of research, and they try and project Aberdeen's image of knowledge and insight for today's problems out to a wider audience. Okay, what do our students say? Well, you can read as quickly as I can read, perhaps, but there's 3 testimonials from 3 of our students from 3 different programs: the MBA, the MSc International Human Resource Management, and the MSc International Business Management. Our students go to a lot of different destinations, many different destinations, and can work in many different sectors. Recently, I had the privilege of meeting one of our Indian graduates who came back to Aberdeen for vacation. He told me he entered into the corporate world after his MBA. He worked for a while, and then he managed to set up his own AI technology company. And the company was looking at how AI can evaluate firms in the supply chain for their, I guess, financial viability. And that company's grown considerably now. It's based out of, it's just actually moved, it's going to be based out of Mumbai. So even coming out from a technology domain, our students have moved into technology domains, but they can do anything. I'll give you another example. One of our graduates, Richard, I speak to him regularly. He works as a pricing analyst for one of the oil service companies in Aberdeen. So he prices all the seabed equipment that this company sends and supplies and services around the globe. Did he have any experience in that before he entered that industry? He didn't, but he had a very good analytical mind, and he is a very quick learner, Richard, and a very quick communicator. So lots and lots of different destinations, and further destinations you can track on our website as well. What we hope to be doing with the programs is, yes, giving you subject knowledge expertise, but also giving you the confidence to, talk to people, discover knowledge and insight for yourself after you leave, and basically be able to apply yourself to a problem and then add value to an organization. That's the kind of mandate of the postgraduate program. I often say to students as well, a couple of other things that are useful. Employers today, they're looking for articulate, numerate team players. And that's the 3 dimensions of what they're looking for. So all of our programs, in all of the courses that make up those programs, the modules that make up those programs, we look to further develop your numeracy skills, your literacy skills, and your communication and teamwork skills. So sometimes you're working on your own, sometimes you're working as a team. Sometimes, you're writing a briefing note or a report. Sometimes you'll be presenting, standing up. And it's all about gaining experiences and confidence from those experiences that will serve you better in the future when you're back into the labour market. Let's move on to the next slide. I'm a little conscious of time. I've been talking about employability already. I've fallen into my own slide here. But we do have a careers and employability service at the university. And what they do is that they will work with you independently as well of the business school. They'll look at your CV. They also have a psychometric test you can take for some reflection on your personality traits and skills and competencies. And this is all about, again, awareness of self that can help you think about where to go and also where your skills are now, perhaps where they still need to be further, and what you can do to develop them further. They also have a database that collects jobs, and you can sign up for a feed for those jobs and apply for those jobs through that. They run various sessions through the year as well. Being a student, though, is I like to think of it as and tell students, actually, I used to run the MBA, but I like to tell the students that you need to think of your time here as a bit of professional development program. And so you are developing your subject knowledge but you're developing yourself. And a part of that development of self is development of your social capital, your network capital, and generally your outlook and on life as well. And that happens in the classroom, but it happens informally as well outside of the classroom, attending guest lectures, working with various groups across the university, and just soaking up as much experience as you can. That's a really important part of the 1 year's intensive study that you're going to have at the university. You kind of need to make the most of it. Okay, so around the business school and around the careers, there's a whole raft of other services and support mechanisms that you can avail yourself while you're at the university. Our job is to work with you to facilitate your time here and to encourage you to be the most that you can. And all of these support services are there to help you through your time in study. Now, I've said a lot. We'll move now. I've talked actually for about 24 minutes, but we'll move now to our conversation with Ava. And I'm going to stop sharing for that and bring Ava into the main room with me. So, afternoon, Ava. Thank
Hello.
you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Let me start, and I'll just remind those that are watching the webinar live, if they have some questions, they can post them in the chat. And my colleague Claire will moderate those questions to us at the end. But let me start, Ava. Tell me, you're on the marketing program. How did you arrive at the marketing program, and what's your background? What did you study before?
So my background is quite different to marketing. I studied education at Aberdeen. That was my undergraduate degree. And I loved my degree. I did. It's just there were elements that I really liked, and there were some that I didn't like. And I did have some real life experience through placements. And what I thought through my placements were that there was key things that stood out to me that were transferable into marketing. Things like creativity, storytelling, critical thinking, problem solving, and those things I really enjoyed. So I did a bit of research. I found that Aberdeen had the marketing MSc program. They had some really good scholarship opportunities as well. And because I loved my time here so much, I applied, and here I am.
Okay, and we were just talking before we came on air that actually it's rapidly going, the time. It's the end of your second semester, almost, not quite. You're working on some assignments. But what do you think has been, what surprised you the most about moving from undergraduate to postgraduate study? I'll give you two questions. What surprised you the most, and what's been enjoyable about it? What have you enjoyed? Which courses or modules have you enjoyed?
I think the biggest thing is, obviously my undergrad was 4 years and it's quite structured into lots of stages, but in this program it's a year, and I've learned so much in a year. If you ask me at the start versus what I know now, it's crazy. But it's just been amazing, and the people that are there, there's a big mix of people, some of which are quite new to it and some of which have maybe worked in industry for a few years before. So you learn so much. And I think for me, there was courses like digital marketing that I was very interested in, where I've been able to strengthen my existing skills, but also courses like international marketing that I didn't really know a lot about. So the way that the course is structured is really, really good for if you hold existing knowledge but want to broaden your horizons a little bit. And everybody is just so friendly, and you learn so much from other people as well.
How I'm going, you missed an answer, but I'm going to come back to it. I'm just, as you were talking, I was thinking, how do the classes work? You know, how is it different from undergraduate? You know, I was talking in the presentation about the relationship between staff and student, this kind of informal and the formal nature being different. Have you found that to be the case?
I think classes are definitely more discussion based. You still have your lectures, but there's lots of tutorials and maybe classes that are more of like a seminar style lecture. There's lots of active learning, there's role play. typically the students tend to lead the classes. Some cases it will be quite lecture style, where you'll just be sitting and learning and discussing, but there's always that element of discussion. So yeah, it's nice.
So I'll come back to, to the two questions. Which was the most enjoyable? I'll come back to one. Which was the most enjoyable course? Courses and modules in Aberdeen. Is there an enjoyable one so far, or?
I guess it depends. I had a passion for digital marketing, so that's been really enjoyable for me, and I felt like I've been able to present a lot in that class as well as learn more. But things like my class strategic marketing, that was very new to me. We were learning about the element of risk and crisis in businesses and how to handle that through role play, and that was really interesting and new to me. And it wasn't something that I think I was going to be particularly knowledgeable about, and I wouldn't really be able to contribute much, but it's actually been really, really good. There's not one course that typically stands out to me. They've all been really, really interesting. Yeah.
Now you mentioned strategic marketing, and I know that in that course as well, I talked about problem-based learning in the presentation, that you are working in as part of a team, I think, solving a company problem. What's the kind of problem that your team's working on in that course?
So alongside the course, you have live projects with businesses, and there's all different types of businesses, and they'll all have their own unique brief. We are working with a women's hormonal healthcare brand, and we're helping them come up with a thorough digital marketing strategy. So we've been looking into their competitors, their brand positioning. We're developing a social media and like digital strategy for them with content planners, things like that. We're also looking into their metrics, their KPIs, and putting it all together, but it's alongside our studies. So we've been having meetings with the ladies that run the business outside of university, and it's just been really nice. It's a real life experience where you're really making a difference with a real business outside, and we've learned a lot from that as well. Lots of support.
Yeah, I know I really like that course because it does connect you with industry, and you get to negotiate or discuss some feedback to the client and get some feedback, not just from the sort of faculty, but also from industry as well. And one thing that people often think about is that faculty, they're very bookish type people, that theoretical. How have you found the faculty, and the applied nature of the program? Because many of our programs are what I indicated earlier. They're sort of theory into practice. They've got an element of vocational based employability to them as well. So what's your perspective of the faculty and their backgrounds? Do you get to know anything about the faculty and their backgrounds?
Yeah, a little bit. I think in that first week you really get to know them, and they get to explain their experience, and it's very relevant. You can definitely see that coming through. A lot of the staff that we work with have had previous experience and have been working in industry, and it definitely shows. It's not just theory from the books. Having that real life perspective and advice has been really, really helpful. I think when we were speaking about our project brief for the brand that I was speaking about with the live projects, we had a meeting with our course leader, and he was just telling us about how sometimes when you get a brief from a company, that it's about finding that golden nugget, and maybe presenting the brief in a way to an employer that's got that golden nugget, that piece that they're really wanting to find. So it's just been really, really useful, and everybody's unique.
So that I'm going to, because that's really what you said is really interesting, so when you listen to somebody talking, let's say a client, and you could be a consultant in the future, you really have to think about how you are listening. And then you have to think about, once you've listened, active listening is different from just hearing. You have to think about how you frame to them what your proposal for a piece of work is. And that's one of those things that I was talking about. It's not really academic study. It's part of that professional development work that comes alongside the study, that means that you'll be better able to lever your academic based knowledge later on in your career. So it's kind of, it's the leveraging, it's the operationalization of knowledge that I think is an important and maybe underspecified part of some of the programs that happen.
Definitely.
Yeah. So next question, I'm going to go on through a couple more. Everyone's often really interested in assessment. What sort of assessments do you have to do inside some of the courses that you've studied?
So for most of my courses, there's usually some kind of big essay or written report at the end. There usually be quite a lot of group projects as well. They're usually in the form of presentations, and they're usually before your final report or essay. So you really get a good chance to meet the people in your course and learn from other people, and put that together and get feedback on your work before you write your own essay. So you're not really alone in that sense, which is nice. The reports they're good. It gives you a chance to apply what you've learned, and in some classes as well, you can really take your own perspective on it. In our consumer behavior class, we just have questions and we can really write the essay according to how we would like it. And then in some classes, you get a really nice structured brief where it's almost like a checklist. You just need to tick the boxes, and the rubric is fairly easy to understand as well. There might be things as well like multiple choice quizzes. Some classes can be more creative where you're creating a poster. It usually just depends on what course you're studying, but there's a good mix, and usually there'll be a group project and an individual project as well.
Yeah. That creativity, I was mindful that I think I reviewed some of the assessment might have been Dr. Tim Stone and the coffee shop analysis, where people did a sort of creative analysis of different coffee shops using, I think we academics talk about semiotics and this sort of, but it was quite practically focused. What was that assessment, if you can remember? Because I found it quite interesting when I was reviewing the students' work.
No, it was really great. It was a poster that would be for a window in a cafe. And usually in the first couple of weeks, we got together and we talked about our favorite drink, our favorite non-alcoholic drink, and we were writing it in the sense of semiotics and the self. And we had this big class data set by the end of it, and we used that and the semiotics theory that we were learning about to create a visual poster which would be appealing and would meet the audience that was in the class data set. And it was a really good opportunity if you're more design based and creative to really work on that and present that. I guess it would be quite challenging if you don't have experience with that, but again, that group process just made it easier. You're not alone in making that poster. And it was a really great experience. It was really good fun. And for someone like me who likes that, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that sort of came out from what you were saying there, Ava, is that, my view in this anyway, is that if you knew how to do everything before you came to university, there'd be no point coming. And the whole point of coming to university is to be introduced to new ideas, whatever they might be, in finance, accounting, marketing, sustainability, economics, and to run with them a little bit, then test them, and then think about them afterwards, reflect on what happened, or what about them, do they apply, don't they apply? And that's the process of learning, really. You have to be almost moved a little bit out of your comfort zone and be introduced to something that you haven't had the opportunity to think about before. So that's really important. Now, the last question before we come to take shared questions is the one: what's the toughest thing, the hardest thing, or has there been a toughest, hardest, most difficult thing that's challenged you over the period you've been here so far?
It's quite cliche, but I think it's just staying on top of the workload. Things can really creep up. Like the life project that I'm doing is outside of my university work, so it's making sure that you stay on top of your lectures and your notes. You're asking your questions and looking at your assignments as soon as you can, and even just briefing them out in your head, having a sticky note of those deadlines and just being aware of them. They can creep up. I think the first semester can be quite tricky because it's Christmas, and whereas the second semester you have your Easter break, which is quite nice. But always just stay on top of things. Speak to people if you have questions. Just reach out because it can get a lot at once. So
Yeah.
just the course is great and they'll always be there to support you. But I think for yourself, when you've got these essays coming up, just make sure that you're prepared and you've managed your time well.
Yeah, it is an intensive program, and that skill about managing deadlines and managing workflows to deadlines is an important skill and something to demonstrate that you can do when you come out of the program at the end. Well, thank you, Ava. We'll just wait now. We're going to see if we've got any questions coming in via Claire. Claire, what have we got?
Yes. Hello, we've had quite a few questions coming in. So I'll start with the first one, which was about international students and what support is available for them to develop their skills and networking and future potential.
So that's a really important question. I mean, Ava's mentioned the project that she's working on. There are, in fact, opportunities for internships for students whilst they're here. Just for example, and they can be coming from companies, or they can be coming from entrepreneurs in the ecosystem in Aberdeen who are looking for, if you like, jobs to do to help push their idea along. So those I think are really important. You know, you should take as much experience as you can, and mixing with many different people is one of those opportunities that are there for you. We also, of course, have lots of clubs and societies at the university which you can join and participate in. And again, I think that's really important. It can't all be, Ava, can it, reading books and articles or writing assignment. You have to have some sort of mind shift downtime. I don't know, Ava, anything to add or some thoughts on anything there?
Well, I just agree. I love the career service here. They're really helpful. They always have their emails. I think you can subscribe to them when you start, of opportunities, and they keep you informed. Their CV guidance as well is fantastic. And in terms of societies, I am the social media officer for the Yoga Society. So that is a good way for me to relax and take my mind off of the university stress when it gets busy. But also it gives me a chance to create content and use what I've learned in my classes into that perspective as well. So yeah, there's lots and lots of opportunities, as well as the classes from like an international perspective. There are so many international students in my class, and it's very diverse and very easy to talk to people and ask questions in that respect.
Thank you. Claire, question number two.
Kind of touching on that, someone's asking about career fairs and if they're beneficial for getting a job after graduation, and also if alumni can attend careers fairs and that sort of events.
I'll answer that. We do have some careers affairs on campus. Actually, you know, when I travel a lot, what you have to do is you have to realize that careers work in many different ways, or accessing a career works in many different ways. So, for example, when I'm traveling around India, everyone talks about campus-based placements, but that doesn't happen in the UK. It might have happened when I was a student, but that's quite a while ago. All jobs now are advertised online, and the careers service work with you to understand where they're advertised and how to access those online spaces and optimize your CV and application letter for them. So it's a kind of yes and yes, but everything needs to be tailored for the environment and the context that you're in. So it'll be different here, and part of your coming here is to learn how to operate and work in a different environment. Should we take another one, Claire? Yeah.
Yeah, someone asking about research. Are students able to help with the research that's happening in the research centres, either through dissertations or work experience?
I mean, that's a very good question as well. I mean, many of the programs you'll have to do a dissertation, which is a significant piece of your own work. So I actually coordinate the marketing dissertations. So students will be doing a significant piece of work, and we have some workshops in the run up to that to make sure that it is a real research question that's come out of the literature or something that's happening. And that's the same for many different programs. Some of those programs as well will also offer the opportunity to do almost like a company-based project instead of a dissertation. And so that option, again, that's one of the options on marketing. It also exists on energy, economics and finance and some of the other programs as well. So depending on what your orientation is, then yes, you can move around a little bit to where you want to go in that regard, sort of practical focus, or maybe a little bit more theoretically underpinned. But a dissertation still, in my mind, should have some managerial implications behind it. Can't all be theory.
Thank you. We have a question for Ava now. What has been the biggest challenge for you going from undergrad to postgraduate study?
I think it's having that confidence to really express yourself and take on opportunities. It can be quite scary, I think, grasping things and coming into a brand new MSc or MBA course, especially if you're maybe from a different background and are maybe converting into a more business related degree. But the biggest advice I can give you is just be confident, be yourself. If something interests you, follow it. If you're ever stuck though, the people here are really, really friendly, and it can be a lot. And like I said before, the deadlines, and sometimes when you see your assignment brief, it can be like, oh my goodness, like where do I even start with this? But just ask questions, speak to your classmates, speak to your lecturers. There's so much support there. So even when it can get overwhelming, and it probably will, just remember the support around you. And if you can say yes to things, do it, because it's so beneficial. But also it's good to be able to manage your time, manage your workflow, and also be able to say no to things as well.
Yeah, you've got to be strategic while you're here, really, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be operational in managing your time, but you've got to be strategic in picking what you want to do as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions, Claire?
We do. We've got a question about is there support for someone who is wanting to return and do their master's degree after being away from university for a while? And what could you say to them?
I mean, Ava, you're sitting in class. I'm conscious that we have, even in the marketing program, it's not people coming straight through from undergraduate to postgraduate. Some people have been in a career and they're coming back. And that's the same, I think, for many of the different programs. Some of the courses, I think you've sat in with those people as well, Ava. So there'll be quite a big spread of age groups across some of the courses. I don't know, what do you want to add to that, Ava? Any experiences?
No, definitely. I agree. There's definitely people in my course that have come back to education. It's very normal. And there are a lot of documents online that can help you with referencing, and the course coordinators will provide that for you as well. And if you're struggling with writing or the language or how to reference, I think there are courses and workshops available to you for that as well, if you ever need any help. So that is there.
Yeah. I was just mindful that one of the, coming for Ava, you're in the United Kingdom, so there's not been a culture shock for you or a cultural difference, shall we say. But one thing that we do offer in the business school is a soft skills program for people that come, who arrive from all over the world, really. And the soft skills sessions are really a familiarization with kind of like the way things are done around here, and they're also about getting to know people and getting to know some of the faculty, and a lot of that's about easing people into study and making them feel comfortable to maybe ask questions or find out informally, where do I go and do something from somebody. And so that soft skills session is led by one of the professors here. I participate in as well, and we meet in a number of different venues off campus, and it's all quite informal, really, but it's about confidence boosting and socialization into something that may be different for you. Anyway, Claire, we've got a couple more minutes, I think, if we've got any more questions.
We do. So someone's asking specifically about the MBA and if that would be helpful for a career in media.
I think, well, it can be. I think we if they connect with the school or Claire or yourself as the marketing coordinator, we can connect them with the MBA program director. But I think, Ava almost alluded to it. When you're here, if you're interested in media or something, let's say digital, there are lots of opportunities to gain some experience in media, digital marketing or whatever, outside of the course as well as inside some of the courses. You've just got to find it and put yourself out there and build up that portfolio of experiences to put on your CV. And I think that that's really crucial for students to do that, to have more than just the name of your certificate on your CV. That's a starting point, but you've got to do a bit more than that.
Maybe the last question that we'll go for is there any support for students to attend conferences that are aligned with specific courses and things, external events?
So, I mean, there's no sort of financial support to attend events off of the campus, but as a student, you can attend any of the speaker sessions, guest sessions from any of the schools across the university. So we have quite a lot going on in the energy domain, energy transition, for example. There are lots of things happening around that, and students can attend those if they have that interest, or even if they just want to meet other people, they can attend those events. So there's also events in the city. There's, for example, I notice often Café Scientifique. It's just where people meet in a cafe in town, and so people come along and then they share some of the research they're doing. It can be on anything, but it can just, be something that maybe inspires you or gives you something to think about or something to talk about later. So again, yes, there is. It's kind of like you have to find these things and participate as much as you can, really. Maximize the time, the 1 year that you'll be here on your master's program at the university. Okay, so I think, Claire, we're okay. Yes, thank you. So Ava, many thanks for your input today. I think it's really helpful to hear from somebody who's actually in a program rather than hearing or from me telling people about the program. So I think that's been a really helpful insight, hopefully for all the people that have watched the webinar today. So I'm going to conclude the session. If you require any further information, our contact details are on the website. It's been a pleasure to be with everyone today, and hopefully we'll see you in Aberdeen in the future. Thank you very much.